"Mom, why don't you live with us?" The question cut through the grand ballroom like a crack of thunder. Crystal chandeliers glowed above hundreds of guests. Expensive suits, designer dresses, flashing cameras. Everything seemed to stop at once. 8-year-old Ethan Reynolds stood in the center of the room, his small hand wrapped tightly around Emily Carter's fingers. The boy's blue eyes were filled with confusion, not mischief. He genuinely wanted an answer. Emily's heart nearly stopped. Her breath caught in her throat. Across the room, Billionaire CEO Nathan Reynolds slowly lowered the champagne glass in his hand. Every conversation faded into silence. Even the string quartet seemed to lose its rhythm. "Ethan," Emily whispered, forcing a smile. "Sweetheart, what are you talking about?" The boy frowned. "You always take care of me when I'm sick. You know my favorite stories. You know what I'm thinking before I say it. Sometimes it feels like you're my real mom." A nervous laugh rippled through the crowd before disappearing just as quickly. Emily felt dozens of eyes locking onto her. She wanted to step back. Instead, she stood frozen. Nathan's gaze never left her face. Something about her reaction felt wrong. Not guilty, not embarrassed. Heartbroken. The kind of heartbreak a person carried for years. Ethan's grandmother, Victoria Reynolds, moved forward immediately. Her smile appeared perfect, yet her eyes flashed with something colder. "Children say the funniest things," she announced. "That's enough excitement for one birthday." She gently guided Ethan away, but the boy kept looking over his shoulder toward Emily. His expression made her chest ache. Moments later, the music resumed. Conversations returned. Guests pretended the scene had never happened. Yet Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that he had just witnessed something important. He watched Emily leave the ballroom carrying a tray of empty glasses. Her shoulders were tense. Her eyes looked suspiciously wet. 20 minutes later, she slipped outside onto a quiet terrace overlooking the city skyline. The cool evening air helped steady her breathing. Below, traffic lights stretched for miles like glowing rivers. Emily reached into her purse and removed a worn photograph. The edges were faded. Her fingers trembled as she stared at it. "Just a few more years," she whispered. "I promise." A voice behind her shattered the moment. "What exactly are you promising?" Emily spun around. Nathan Reynolds stood in the doorway. His expression was calm, though his eyes were searching for answers. Instantly, she hid the photograph behind her back. "Nothing," she replied. Nathan took a slow step closer. That didn't sound like nothing. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. The city lights flickered below. Somewhere inside the mansion, laughter echoed from the birthday celebration. Then Nathan noticed something sticking out from the edge of the photo. A tiny blue hospital bracelet. The color drained from Emily's face when she realized he had seen it. Nathan's pulse quickened. He didn't know why, but suddenly one impossible thought refused to leave his mind. What if Ethan's strange question wasn't a child's imagination at all? Emily quickly slid the photograph back into her purse. Her pulse raced so loudly she was certain Nathan could hear it. For a moment, neither of them moved. The city stretched beneath the terrace, glowing against the dark sky. Nathan kept his eyes on her. Something about the fear in her expression felt deeply personal. Not the fear of losing a job. Not the fear of being caught in a harmless lie. It looked like the fear of someone protecting a secret that had become part of their soul. "I did not mean to intrude," Nathan said quietly. "But Ethan's question tonight clearly upset you." Emily forced a polite smile. "Children say unusual things all the time." Nathan nodded slowly. "Maybe. Yet I have never seen him react to anyone the way he reacts to you." Emily looked away. The lights from nearby buildings reflected in her eyes. "He is a wonderful kid." "That is not what I asked." The words were calm, though they carried weight. Emily knew she had to leave before the conversation became dangerous. "I should get back inside." Nathan stepped aside, allowing her to pass. Still, his curiosity only grew stronger as she disappeared into the mansion. The rest of the evening felt strange. Guests laughed. Music played. Expensive gifts were opened. Through it all, Nathan found himself watching Emily. Every time Ethan entered a room, her attention shifted toward him instantly. If he smiled, she relaxed. If he stumbled, she reacted before anyone else noticed. It was almost instinctive. Near the end of the party, Ethan grew tired from the excitement. Emily helped him upstairs while the final guests prepared to leave. The boy sat on the edge of his bed, clutching a stuffed astronaut he had owned since kindergarten. "Are you mad at me?" he asked softly. Emily sat beside him. Why would I be mad? Because of what I said downstairs. Her chest tightened. No, sweetheart. I am not mad. Ethan stared at the floor. I just wish my mom was here. Emily felt the familiar ache she carried every day. Your family loves you very much. That is not the same thing. His answer struck her harder than she expected. Before she could respond, he wrapped his arms around her. Emily closed her eyes. For one brief moment, the years between them seemed to disappear. Downstairs, Nathan entered his private office instead of joining the remaining guests. He sat behind his desk, unable to shake the image of the blue hospital bracelet attached to the photograph. His mind kept replaying the scene on the terrace. Then another memory surfaced. 3 months earlier, during a company charity event, Ethan had scraped his knee while running outside. Before any staff member reacted, Emily had reached him first. She had looked terrified, not concerned, terrified. At the time, Nathan assumed she was simply protective. Now he was no longer sure. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. The door opened before he answered. Victoria Reynolds entered with her usual elegance. You seem distracted, she observed. Nathan leaned back in his chair. Do you know much about Emily's past? For the first time all evening, something flickered across Victoria's face. It vanished almost instantly. Why would you ask that? She replied. Nathan studied her carefully. Then, for reasons he could not explain, a quiet warning settled deep in his gut. His mother's reaction had not been surprise. It had been fear. The next morning, Nathan could not stop thinking about his mother's reaction. Victoria Reynolds had spent decades building a reputation for composure. Nothing surprised her. Nothing rattled her. Yet the moment he mentioned Emily's past, a crack had appeared in that perfect mask. It lasted only a second, but it was enough. Nathan arrived at headquarters before sunrise. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked downtown Manhattan, while the city slowly came alive below. Normally, business problems occupied his mind. Billion-dollar negotiations, market forecasts, expansion plans. Today, none of that mattered. He opened a secure employee file database and typed Emily Carter's name into the search field. The profile appeared instantly. Age 27. Employment history. Background checks. References. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Nathan frowned. Most people left traces of their past. Old addresses. College records. Previous employers. Emily's file seemed unusually clean, as though someone had carefully removed every rough edge. A soft knock interrupted him. His assistant entered carrying a tablet. Your 9 o'clock meeting is ready. Nathan glanced at the screen, then closed the employee file. Reschedule it. The assistant blinked. The investors flew in from Texas. Reschedule it. 10 minutes later, he found himself driving toward the Reynolds estate instead of attending board meetings. Something deeper than curiosity was pulling him forward. Back at the mansion, Emily was helping Ethan with breakfast. The boy sat at the kitchen island eating pancakes shaped like stars. Maple syrup covered half his plate. You were supposed to eat them, Emily teased. Not study them. Ethan laughed. Maybe astronauts eat pancakes in space. For a brief moment, she forgot everything else. The fear, the secrets, the constant pressure of staying silent. Then the kitchen door opened. Nathan walked in unexpectedly. Ethan brightened immediately. Dad. Nathan smiled, ruffling the boy's hair before his attention shifted toward Emily. She noticed the look instantly. He was observing her again, measuring her reactions, searching for answers she could not afford to give. Good morning, Nathan said. Good morning, Emily replied carefully. An uncomfortable silence followed. Ethan seemed oblivious. He continued talking about astronauts, rockets, and his birthday gifts. Suddenly, a housekeeper entered carrying a stack of mail. One envelope slipped from the pile and landed near Emily's chair. She reached for it automatically. Nathan noticed her hand freeze halfway there. The return address had caught her attention. St. Mary's Medical Center. The color drained from her face. She quickly looked away. Nathan saw everything. Every tiny reaction. Every flicker of emotion. Is something wrong? He asked. No, the answer came too fast. Emily stood. I should start preparing Ethan's study schedule. She left the room before either of them could continue the conversation. Nathan stared after her. Then he picked up the envelope. It was addressed to Victoria Reynolds. Nothing unusual should have stood out. Yet the name of the hospital sparked a strange memory. Years ago, Ethan had been born there. Later that afternoon, Nathan visited his mother's private sitting room. Victoria appeared relaxed while reading near a large window. Sunlight spilled across the polished floor. "I have a question," Nathan said. She lowered her book. "Another one about Emily?" Nathan did not answer immediately. "Why would St. Mary's Medical Center still be sending you correspondence connected to events from 8 years ago?" For the first time, Victoria's smile disappeared completely. A cold silence settled between them. Then she closed her book with deliberate care. "Some questions," she said softly, "are better left in the past." Instead of reassuring Nathan, her words confirmed his growing suspicion. Somewhere inside the past she wanted buried, a truth was waiting to be uncovered. Emily barely made it back to her room before her composure cracked. She closed the door, leaned against it, then released a shaky breath. Every day inside the Reynolds estate felt like walking across thin ice. One wrong step could destroy everything. She opened a small wooden box hidden inside the bottom drawer of her dresser. Carefully, she removed the photograph Nathan had almost seen on the terrace. Her fingers traced the faded image. A younger version of herself smiled into the camera while holding a newborn wrapped in a pale blue blanket. Time had softened the colors, but not the memories. Beneath the photograph rested a folded document. The paper was worn from years of being opened and closed. Emily hesitated before unfolding it once more. At the bottom sat her signature. Above it were the words that had haunted her for 8 years. A confidentiality agreement. She had promised never to reveal certain events connected to the child's birth. Never ask questions. Never contact specific individuals. Never seek legal action. In exchange, financial assistance had been offered. Emily had never touched most of the money. Survival had forced her to sign, but guilt had forced her to keep the evidence. A sudden knock startled her. She quickly returned everything to the box. "Come in," she called. The door opened. To her surprise, it was not Ethan. It was Victoria Reynolds. The older woman stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. Her elegant appearance never changed. Neither did the quiet authority she carried into every room. "We need to talk," Victoria said. Emily felt her stomach tighten. "About what?" Victoria studied her carefully. "Nathan is asking questions." Neither woman spoke for several seconds. The silence itself felt dangerous. "I have done everything you asked," Emily finally replied. "I kept my word." "Then continue keeping it." Victoria's voice remained calm, though the warning beneath it was unmistakable. Emily looked away. "This is becoming harder." "Harder for whom?" Victoria asked. "For you? Or for the child?" The question landed heavily. Emily swallowed. "He deserves the truth." Victoria's expression hardened for the first time. The truth would turn his entire life upside down. Before Emily could answer, Victoria moved toward the door. Then she paused. "Some sacrifices are necessary to protect the people we love." The door closed behind her. Emily remained frozen long after she left. Hours later, Nathan sat alone in his office inside the estate. His mother's words from earlier continued echoing in his mind. Some questions are better left in the past. The more she discouraged him, the more determined he became. He opened his laptop and began searching through archived family records. Most documents were routine. Trust agreements, financial statements, estate planning paperwork. Then he found something unusual. 8 years ago, around the same time Ethan was born, a substantial payment had been authorized from a private Reynolds family account. The amount exceeded $200,000. The recipient's name had been redacted. Nathan stared at the screen. Large payments always left a trail. Yet this one seemed intentionally hidden. His pulse quickened. A coincidence was becoming a pattern. Across the estate, Ethan sat in his room drawing pictures. One drawing showed himself standing between Emily and Nathan. Above all 3 figures, he had carefully written a single word: family. He smiled proudly at his artwork, completely unaware that the adults around him were standing on the edge of a secret that was beginning to unravel. 3 days later, Nathan found himself standing outside St. Mary's Medical Center. Rain tapped softly against the windshield of his car while he stared at the hospital entrance. He had spent years making decisions based on facts, not instincts. Yet every instinct told him that the answers were hidden somewhere inside those walls. The problem was that most records from 8 years ago were protected. Access required legal authorization or direct family consent. Normally, that would have stopped him. Instead, it only deepened his suspicion. Meanwhile, Back at the estate, Emily was helping Ethan prepare a presentation for school. Colored markers covered the table. Sheets of paper were scattered everywhere. Ethan held up his project with a proud smile. "What do you think?" Emily looked at the drawing and felt her heart tighten. Once again, Ethan had drawn the same three people together. Himself, Nathan, her. "It is beautiful," she said softly. "Do you really think so?" "I do." Ethan grinned. "Then maybe I will show it to Dad tonight." Emily forced a smile, though uneasiness settled inside her chest. The closer Nathan moved toward the truth, the harder everything became. Later that afternoon, a black luxury sedan pulled into the estate driveway. Victoria noticed it from the front window. Her expression darkened immediately when she recognized Nathan stepping out. More troubling was the folder tucked beneath his arm. She met him in the main hall before he could reach his office. "You have been busy," she observed. Nathan stopped walking. Interesting choice of words. "I know you well enough to recognize that look." He studied her face carefully. "Then perhaps you also know I am tired of half answers." Victoria remained silent. Nathan opened the folder. Inside were copies of financial transfers connected to the mysterious payment from 8 years earlier. $200,000, he said. Paid through a private family account. No explanation. No recipient listed. What? For the first time, Victoria did not answer immediately. Her hesitation spoke louder than words. "Some matters are complicated," she finally replied. "Then simplify them." A tense silence followed. Victoria looked away first. That alone shocked Nathan. His mother never retreated from difficult conversations. Never. Upstairs, Emily unknowingly watched from a second-floor balcony. She could not hear every word, but she saw enough. Nathan was confronting Victoria. The investigation was accelerating. Panic rose inside her. If the truth emerged the wrong way, Ethan could be hurt. That fear had guided every decision she made for years. That evening, after dinner, Ethan excitedly handed Nathan his school project. Nathan smiled until he noticed the drawing. The same image. The same three people standing together beneath a hand-drawn sun. "Why did you draw Emily with us?" Nathan asked gently. Ethan shrugged. "Because she belongs with us." The answer seemed innocent, childlike, yet it struck Nathan with unexpected force. Later that night, unable to sleep, he reviewed the folder again. A small detail suddenly caught his eye. Attached to the payment records was a reference number linked to a legal document. He entered the number into a database search. Seconds later, a result appeared on the screen. Confidential settlement. Agreement. Date: 8 years ago. Status: sealed. Nathan stared at the words as a chill ran through him. Somewhere behind that sealed agreement was the secret everyone seemed desperate to protect. The words on Nathan's screen refused to leave his mind. Confidential settlement agreement. Sealed. 8 years old. Connected to a hidden payment. Connected to St. Mary's Medical Center. Connected to the exact period when Ethan entered the world. Nothing about it felt random anymore. The following morning, Nathan skipped breakfast and headed directly to his office. Sunlight poured through the windows, yet the room felt unusually cold. He contacted one of the most trusted attorneys his family had worked with for years. Within hours, a secure video call was arranged. "I need information about a sealed agreement," Nathan said without wasting time. The attorney adjusted his glasses while reviewing the file reference number Nathan had provided. His expression changed almost immediately. This document was created under extraordinary confidentiality provisions. Nathan leaned forward. "Can you tell me who signed it?" The attorney hesitated. "Legally, I should not." "Can you?" Another pause followed. Finally, the attorney lowered his voice. "One signature belongs to Victoria Reynolds." Nathan's heart sank. He had expected his mother to be involved. Hearing confirmation was different. It transformed suspicion into fact. "Who signed the other side?" Nathan asked. The attorney shook his head. "That section remains protected. Access would require a court order or voluntary disclosure from the parties involved." The call ended moments later. Nathan sat motionless. His mother had signed the agreement. That much was undeniable now. Across the estate, Emily was struggling through her own battle. She stood alone in the garden behind the mansion while autumn leaves drifted across the walking paths. Every day felt heavier than the one before. She knew Nathan was getting closer. She could sense it in his questions, in the way he watched her, in the tension growing throughout the house. A familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. "You look worried." Emily turned. Ethan stood beside her, holding a soccer ball. I am fine, she replied. You always say that when you are not. His observation made her smile despite everything. When did you become so wise? Probably around 3rd grade. Emily laughed softly. For a few precious minutes, they kicked the ball across the lawn. Ethan's laughter filled the air. Watching him run made her heart ache in ways she could never explain aloud. Nearby, Victoria observed from a 2nd-floor window. Her concern deepened as she watched the connection between them. The bond was becoming impossible to ignore. Later that evening, Nathan entered the family library searching for old estate records. He had reviewed countless documents already, but something told him he had overlooked an important detail. Hours passed. Shelves filled with leather-bound volumes surrounded him. Then, hidden inside a storage box labeled private correspondence, he discovered a small envelope. No return address. No sender information. Only one handwritten note folded inside. Nathan carefully opened it. The message contained a single sentence. If you ever learn the truth, ask what happened before the birth certificate was filed. Nathan stared at the words. His pulse accelerated. There was no signature. No explanation. Yet the message pointed directly toward the same mystery he had been chasing for weeks. Before the birth certificate was filed. Not after. Before. Suddenly the timeline shifted inside his mind. Maybe the secret was not about what happened after Ethan was born. Maybe everything began much earlier. Somewhere in the shadows of the past, someone had altered the story before it was ever officially recorded. The anonymous note changed everything. Nathan read the sentence over and over until the words seemed burned into his memory. Ask what happened before the birth certificate was filed. Whoever had written it knew something important. More importantly, they wanted him to keep digging. The next morning, Nathan returned to St. Mary's Medical Center with a different strategy. Instead of requesting sealed records, he searched for people. Records could be hidden. Memories were harder to erase. After several inquiries, he located a retired administrative supervisor who had worked at the hospital 8 years earlier. Her name was Margaret Ellis. She agreed to meet him at a small coffee shop a few miles from the hospital. Margaret appeared to be in her late 60s. Kind eyes. Careful speech. The type of person who noticed details others missed. Nathan explained that he was researching family records connected to events from years ago. At first, she seemed hesitant. Then he mentioned the date of Ethan's birth. A strange expression crossed her face. I remember that week, Margaret said quietly. Nathan sat forward. Why? Margaret stirred her coffee. Because there was confusion. His pulse quickened. What kind of confusion? She looked around before answering. Several documents were corrected after filing. Nathan felt a chill. Corrected by whom? Margaret hesitated. I do not know officially. Certain requests came from influential people. Hospital administrators were under pressure. Pressure regarding what? Margaret slowly shook her head. I never saw the full picture. I only remember hearing that a young mother was devastated. Then, suddenly, everyone stopped talking about it. Nathan's thoughts raced. A young mother. A hospital. Corrected documents. Nothing was proven yet, but the pieces were beginning to align. Back at the estate, Emily spent the afternoon helping Ethan build a model solar system for school. Tiny foam planets hung from strings above the table. Ethan proudly painted Saturn's rings while explaining random space facts he had memorized. Emily listened, smiling whenever he became excited. These moments were precious because they felt normal. For a little while, she could pretend life was simple. Then her phone vibrated. A message appeared from an unknown number. He is getting closer. Be careful. Emily froze. The blood drained from her face. She quickly deleted the message before Ethan could notice. Only a handful of people knew enough to send a warning like that. The fact that someone was watching terrified her. That evening, Nathan returned home carrying far more questions than answers. He found Victoria alone in the formal dining room reviewing charity event plans. I met someone from St. Mary's today, he announced. Victoria's hand stopped moving. Barely. Yet Nathan noticed. Interesting, she replied. They remembered confusion surrounding the records from that week. Silence settled over the room. People remember many things incorrectly, Victoria said. Nathan did not break eye contact. They also remembered a young mother whose life changed overnight. For the first time, genuine tension appeared on Victoria's face. The calm certainty she normally projected seemed weaker now. Nathan suddenly realized something important. His mother was no longer confident the secret would remain buried. Upstairs, unaware of the conversation below, Ethan finished his school project. Smiling proudly, he added one final detail to his drawing of the family. This time he drew 4 people instead of 3. When Emily asked why, Ethan answered without hesitation. Because someone is missing from the picture. I just do not know who yet. The next breakthrough arrived when Nathan least expected it. 2 days after meeting Margaret Ellis, his attorney called with urgent news. A legal review connected to the sealed agreement had uncovered an overlooked attachment. The attachment itself remained protected, but one piece of information could now be disclosed. The second person who signed the agreement was Emily Carter. Nathan sat frozen behind his desk. For several seconds, he simply stared at the city skyline beyond his office windows. Emily. The name echoed through his mind. Every strange reaction, every tear she tried to hide, every moment she seemed unable to pull away from Ethan. Suddenly, none of it felt accidental. Yet one question remained. Why? That evening, Nathan returned to the estate earlier than usual. He found Emily alone in the library organizing books while Ethan attended soccer practice. The room felt unusually quiet. Sunlight filtered through tall windows. Dust floated through the air like tiny sparks. "We need to talk," Nathan said. Emily immediately sensed something had changed. "About what?" Nathan stepped closer. "I know you signed the agreement." The color disappeared from her face. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she slowly placed the book back onto the shelf. "You should not be investigating this." Nathan could hardly believe her response. No denial. No surprise. Only resignation. "Why were you involved?" he asked. Emily closed her eyes briefly. "Because I had no choice." "No choice in what?" Her voice trembled. "Some truths hurt innocent people." Nathan shook his head. "The truth is already hurting people." Tears gathered in Emily's eyes, but she fought them back. "You do not understand." "Then help me understand." Before she could answer, another voice entered the conversation. "That is enough." Victoria stood in the library doorway. Neither of them had heard her approach. The tension inside the room became almost unbearable. Nathan turned toward his mother. "No, it is not enough anymore." Victoria's expression remained controlled, though her confidence seemed weaker than ever. "You are chasing assumptions." Nathan reached into his briefcase and placed a folder on the table. "I have hospital records, hidden payments, a sealed agreement, witness statements. Every path leads back to the same people." His eyes shifted toward Emily. "And now I know both of you signed the document." Silence filled the room. Emily looked as though the weight of 8 years had suddenly landed on her shoulders. Then something unexpected happened. Victoria looked away first. The smallest gesture, yet it revealed everything. Nathan felt a chill run through him. "You knew," he said quietly. "From the beginning." Victoria did not answer. She did not need to. The truth was written across her face. Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Please," she whispered. "Do not do this here." Nathan looked between them. One woman carrying fear, the other carrying guilt. At that moment, he understood that both of them had been living with the same secret for years. Later that night, unable to ignore the mounting evidence, Nathan authorized a private DNA analysis using legally obtained samples already available through family medical records. He stared at the confirmation request on his screen before finally pressing submit. The test would provide answers no document could hide. As the request processed, a single thought echoed through his mind. By this time next week, everything might change forever. 5 days later, the results arrived. Nathan sat alone in his office, staring at the sealed envelope resting on his desk. Outside, rain drifted across the estate grounds. The entire house felt strangely quiet, as though it were holding its breath alongside him. For a long moment, he could not bring himself to open it. Then he finally broke the seal. His eyes moved across the report. The world seemed to stop. The probability was overwhelming. There was no ambiguity, no room for doubt. Emily Carter was Ethan's biological mother. Nathan lowered the document slowly. Every unanswered question suddenly connected. Ethan's instinctive trust, Emily's endless fear, the hospital records, the hidden payments, the agreement. It had all been real. Minutes later, he requested a private meeting in the estate library. Emily arrived first. She already sensed what was coming. The moment she saw the report in Nathan's hand, tears filled her eyes. Victoria entered shortly afterward. For the first time in years, the powerful matriarch looked tired. Nathan placed the DNA results on the table between them. No one spoke. No one needed to. The truth had finally arrived. How long? Nathan asked quietly. Emily looked down. 8 years. The answer echoed through the room. Nathan turned toward his mother. Tell me everything. Victoria closed her eyes briefly before speaking. Her voice carried none of its usual confidence. 8 years earlier, Emily had been young, alone, and struggling financially. A series of misunderstandings surrounding family records, legal decisions, and fears about the future had spiraled into choices that should never have happened. When Ethan was born, Victoria became convinced she was protecting the Reynolds family legacy. She used her influence to control information, arrange agreements, and prevent questions. What began as a temporary decision became a permanent secret. As the years passed, admitting the truth felt impossible. Silence became easier than confession. Emily listened with tears running down her cheeks. I wanted to fight, she whispered, but I was terrified I would lose everything. Nathan looked at her. For the first time, he truly understood the burden she had carried. She had lived under the same roof as her son, loving him every day while pretending to be someone else. Across the room, Victoria lowered her head. I thought I was protecting everyone, she said softly. Instead, I hurt all of you. Later that evening, the 3 adults sat down with Ethan. The conversation was gentle, honest, age-appropriate. Some details would wait until he was older. Yet one truth could no longer remain hidden. Ethan listened carefully. Then he looked at Emily. So that is why you always felt like family. Emily could no longer hold back her tears. Ethan wrapped his arms around her without hesitation. You do not have to be sad anymore, he said. Nathan felt emotion tighten his chest as he watched them. For years, a missing piece had existed in all their lives. Now it had finally returned. Over the following months, the family slowly rebuilt trust. There were difficult conversations, complicated emotions, plenty of healing still ahead. Yet the foundation was finally built on truth instead of secrets. One afternoon, Ethan proudly hung a new drawing on the refrigerator. This time there were 4 people standing together beneath a bright blue sky. Nathan smiled when he noticed the caption written across the top in careful handwriting. Not perfect, just family. And for the first time in 8 years, that simple word finally felt complete.